Hello hobbyists! Back in early August, I released a painting video going over the USA Soldiers for Combat Storms game. This of course was their first release of models to go alongside their game, and you all seem to really enjoy it. If you missed it, check the link in the description below for the video, or the card that should appear over here as well. But those American soldiers need their enemy to fight, and that's what we're painting up today. Our PCF soldiers. Well everyone, welcome back to yet another Getting on the Tabletop. Today we're dealing with the PCF Soldiers of Combat Storms first official miniature release. And there's not much different here between the variety of soldier. You get your flavor of anti-armor, your flavor of support, your flavor of sniper, your flavor of rifleman. Again, their first release is just these soldiers. Again, Combat Storm does plan to release tanks and all the other different menagerie of soldiers, but they would just want to release these first. So let's paint these soldiers up to be really cool for the tabletop. So I've started off by priming them in skeleton bone from the Army Painter. That will cover all their arms, legs, and all of that, and then we're gonna slowly add up the rest of the colors. Now, the first thing we're going to do is the body armor that every one of these soldiers have, and to do that, we're gonna use, once again, Banshee Brown. So first off, I did these soldiers a little differently. I actually have them pasted to lids of pill bottles just for a little bit more control. But anyways, what we're going to take that Banshee Brown and we're going to cover up all of the body armor that are on these soldiers here. So I'm going to use a small brush here. I've got some Banshee Brown already on my wet palette, but yes, that's what we're going to cover up. Now if you get it on the arms, the legs, anything like that, no worries. Again, since we primed it in an Army Painter primer, specifically skeleton bone, which is a 100% color match to the dropper bottle, you can just go quickly patch that up. Again, we're going to leave this skeleton bone here to represent that tan color that the tan army men represent, much like what we did for our USA soldiers had green to represent because they're from green army men. So anyways, get some Banshee Brown on your brush, and all you want to do is you're just going to take your time picking out the vest. Now it's probably going to look a little hard for you to distinguish between the skeleton bone and the Banshee Brown, but just take your time, a couple light coats, and work through it. So like I said, take your time and work through all of the body armor. So we completed the armor. As you can see, there's not really much of a difference in definition between the skeleton bone and the Banshee Brown. So if you don't like this difference and it's just too subtle for you, you can just leave the armor as Banshee Brown, or heck, even paint it whatever color you want. But again, I kind of like the body armor being that Banshee Brown color. Now, if you're wondering why we're not going to paint the helmet Banshee Brown, I'm actually going to paint that black when we get to that step. Here's a look at our sniper. Again, it's a very, very subtle difference between what the skeleton bone is and the Banshee Brown. Took about 2 thin coats to get that coloration. Support Infantry Soldier here. And finally, our Anti-Armor Soldier. So, next up, it's time we should get onto all of the, well, pouches that hold all the ammo and all the stuff that these PCF soldiers have. Now, it doesn't look like there's much of the way of like pouches on the pants. As you can see, there's like these pouching here and stuff. If you wanted to paint that up, you probably could paint that up in the color we're going to paint up, but if not, and you just want to leave that to be the color, you can go right ahead and do that as well. But majority of the stuff we are definitely painting up in the color we're about to do, with all the pouches where the ammo is stored and all that, is definitely on the body armor. To do that color, we will be using hemp rope. So just take your hemp rope, take out all the pouches. So a lot of them are going to be on the surface of the body armor. I'll try to get it in there, right there. So that is what we're going to be going after. There's all the little pouches that are on the side of the armor. That's like right here we're going to paint up. There's the ones that are right here. Make sure you get the tops of those pouches when painting up there. And again, if you wanted to, if you think that like this right here is a pouch that you want to paint up in hemp rope, go right ahead, or you can leave it, of course, the more tan looking color from skeleton bone. So just take your time and work through all of the pouches, holsters, everything on this model that is meant to be hemp rope. So there we have it. Here we have our Rifleman Soldier all painted up with his hemp rope, of course, really bringing in all of those pouches and all of that. I did do the pouches on the pants as well. Again, if you didn't want to do that, you can easily just leave those the skeleton bone color. Here's a look at our sniper. Now, I will say that the pouch that's kind of right up next to his gun, if you thought that was more of the stock of the rifle, you could probably just repaint that to what we're going to paint that, which is going to be dirt spatter for the brown color here. But yeah, here is at least a look at the sniper all together. Here is the support infantry soldier. And finally, our anti-armor soldier. So with all of that done, let's get all of the black done, and to do that color, we will be using matte black. So as I grab our Rifleman here, what exactly are we painting black? Well, we're gonna paint up the helmet. The support infantry soldier also has a helmet, so we're gonna paint up that, and we're gonna paint up the face coverings that every soldier has, which will also be black. And then we're gonna do, of course, the gloves. We're going to do the helmet. Again, make sure you do that on the support infantry soldier. All of them have face coverings, so we're gonna do those, and then we're going to do as well the gloves. So take your time and work through all of the matte black. So we've completed all of the matte black, of course, on the helmet here, the face covering, the gloves. Now, I did forget to mention one location. All the soldiers do have their little elbow pads here, so I did cover those in black as well. But here we have, of course, our finished Rifleman. Here is our finished support infantry soldier, our finished sniper, and finally our anti-armor soldier. So next up, we're going to do all of the brown. Now, this is going to be very interesting because this is going to be a different style of painting these models. So we're going to do the boots in brown, but then we're also going to do a lot of the weapons in brown. For the sniper, we're going to paint the back of the gun, the stock here, and then we're going to paint this part right here all brown. For our support infantry soldier, we're going to paint the stock, where his hand is holding, where you would hold for the trigger. We're going to paint the back here brown, and then we're also going to paint this little top portion brown. And then finally for our Rifleman, we are going to paint this part up here brown, and then the stock in the back brown. So yes, it's very much different than how we did our USA soldiers, where we just painted up our USA soldiers using Necromancer cloak over the entirety of their weapons. These weapons do have brown mixed into the Necromancer cloak. And to do that brown color, we will be using dirt spatter. So I got my Rifleman here. So we're going to, of course, paint up his boots, both of them. And like I said, for the gun itself, we're going to paint this part right here for the rifle soldier brown. And then, of course, we're going to do the back stock. Now, once again, we're going to do the stock, handle, and the little above part for the support infantry that's like right here. For the sniper, it's going to be the stock and the part that's in the front. And then the anti-armor soldier, we're going to be leaving his entire RPG. The color is, we're just going to paint a few parts in with Necromancer cloak. So just take your time, pick out those parts, and paint them up brown. So we finished up the dirt spatter here, again covering up the boots, and then also covering up the parts of the gun here, of course, with the Rifleman, the stock and the front of his rifle. Here's our support infantry soldier, again his stock. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but I did get the handle, and then of course a little part on top of the machine gun here. Then we just have the boots, of course, for our anti-armor soldier. His gun did not, of course, get any brown on it. And then finally our sniper here, again his boots as well as his sniper rifle. So that completes all of that. So now we're going to get into a couple of one-note colors here. First up, we're going to do the visor on our support infantry's helmet. Then we're going to deal with the missile on the end of the RPG here. So to do both those colors, we'll be doing 𝐂𝐍𝐄𝐃 for the blue of that visor on our support infantry soldier's helmet, and then angel green for the rocket on the RPG. So we completed the blue visor here for our support infantry soldier. Now there are some little rivets on his visor, but we will be doing those in Necromancer cloak here once we are ready to start painting up, of course, the weapons in Necromancer cloak. And then of course here is the rocket on the RPG painted up here, of course, on our anti-armor soldier. So now we're going to move into doing the faces in there. Now once again, I'm not going to be doing the eyes inside those little face slits between, of course, the matte black face head coverings here. But again, if you wanted to do that, go right ahead. I'm just not comfortable with doing eyes that are not well defined on these models. Again, I said with the USA soldiers, you're going to be looking at them at like a 33 degree angle, so it's a little hard that you're going to pick out those eyes, unless, you know, even when facing like this, you're going to just see the you're going to be seeing the person or the face, but you won't be really able to probably pick out the eyes. So we're going to do that, and to do that color we'll be using Keybold Skin. So the space between the face cut, the head covering, and where the eyes are is very, very small. So I'm going to be using a small brush, and I'm just going to gently and carefully pick out the eyes. Now again, if you get it on any of the black, just go patch that up after you're done. So just take your time and work through each of the face sections. So there we go, we've tackled all of the faces here. Of course, this is the face on our infantry soldier, the face on our sniper, the face on our support infantry soldier, and the face on our anti-armor soldier. So now we are ready to now paint up all of the weapons and parts of the weapons, and we will have Necromancer cloak. So for the RPG here, it's going to be these little tabs on here, as well as the fire mechanism here, and then the other holder that he's holding. And then of course all the rest of our guns will get Necromancer cloak as well. But on our support infantry soldier, there is a rack of rounds coming out of the clip down here. That will be a separate color. So we're just going to do the main gun in Necromancer cloak and leave the rack of rounds for a different color. But we'll complete that at the same time we are completing our guns. So we'll do those two colors together, and then after that, that leaves us one final color. Now, the soldiers do have the little compacts as well on their arms right here. Make sure you get those as well with Necromancer cloak. So here's our Necromancer cloak. The color we're going to use for the rounds will be Retributor armor. So I have our Rifleman here. I have some Necromancer cloak on my brush, and we're just going to take our time covering everything that isn't already brown on our guns, as well as being careful of the gloves as well as on our soldiers. So you'll just want to take your time with your Necromancer cloak and do all of that. And again, once you're done with the Necromancer cloak on the support infantry soldier, make sure to paint his belt of rounds that are coming out of his clip that Retributor armor. So just take your time, work through the Necromancer cloak and then the Retributor armor, and if you do get it on anything that has been officially painted up a different color, just go back, touch that up. But again, if you take your time, you won't have to worry about that. So get those two colors done. So So we finished up the Necromancer cloak here. Of course, a look at the gun. Now it's really defined out the weapon here on our infantryman or our rifleman. Here it is on our sniper. Of course, he did have the little compact here, so we did that as well. Just a look at him. Here is our anti-armor soldier, of course, with the small parts that got picked out for Necromancer cloak. Finally, our support infantry soldier, he also had the compact, so there it is as well. Now, why I mentioned to do Retributor armor after you did Necromancer cloak is because Retributor armor is a metallic paint, so it has the metallic flecks in it, so you don't want to mix non-metallic paint with a metallic paint, because again, the flecks will transfer from your water into your normal paint, and it will give the normal paint that's not meant to have the metallic shine a little metallic shine, and you don't want that. You want to keep your metallic paints separate from your normal paints. And again, as soon as you're done using any metallic paint, I like to change out the water, even if I just use a little bit, just because I don't want those metallic flecks in my normal paint. So there is one final color left to do here, and I did forget to mention, I did hit the little stubs on the visor there here with Necromancer cloak. Now I will say you could have easily skipped that step and just hit them little dot with gunmetal, which of course highlights our Necromancer cloak, but I do Necromancer cloak first, and then we'll hit it with a dot of gunmetal. If you just want to skip the Necromancer cloak and put it with gunmetal, you can do that as well. So anyways, the last color to paint here is the straps on the arms, and to do that, we'll be using uniform gray. So these straps are only on the arms here, so just take your time picking them out, being careful with, of course, the main arm clothing, because again, that needs to be staying skeleton bone, but you get it on the skeleton bone, you can just go attach that up with skeleton bone. After you finish up all of your uniform gray straps on the arms, we will be ready to begin shading our models. So just take your time and work through each the straps on the arms of each of your models. So there we go. All of our straps are done here for our infantry soldier, and of course our others, but here is the look at the infantry soldier, a look at our anti-armor soldier, a look at the support infantry soldier. Now you'll notice that there was these leg braces in the bottom that like go next to the boots. I also did that in uniform gray. Now if you wanted to, you could also put those in hemp rope. It just matters kind of what paint color you want to use for it. I would probably more go with hemp rope, but I decided to go with uniform gray here. But anyways, just a look there. And finally, our sniper. Now we are ready to wash these models, and much like the USA soldiers I did, I'm going to wash them all off camera because we're going to be using quite a bit of washes here. So let's talk about the washes we will be using. First, any Army Painter wash that we're going to utilize, we're going to mix 1-to-1 with Quick Shade Wash Mixing Medium. Again, I like to use this for all of my Army Painter washes. It tones down the color, again, 1-to-1. First up, for the black Necromancer cloak and skeleton bone, and as well as the straps, we will be using dark tone. Our browns, that is mid brown, so that is everything that is fur brown. For our Banshee brown armor, we'll be using strong tone. For our pouches, we'll be using soft tone, so that is the hemp rope stuff. For our flesh, we will be using flesh wash. For the blue on our soldier visor for our support infantry, we'll be using Dragonoff Nightshade. For the green of the rocket on our anti-armor soldier, we'll be using military shader. And finally, for our bullets on our support infantry soldier, we'll be using Seraphim Sepia. You could also use Agrax Earthshade as well. I just prefer this wash over Agrax. So just take your time working through each color of this model with its wash. Try not to get the wash on anything that's not meant to be have that wash. So again, our black, our uniform gray, our skeleton bone, and our Necromancer cloak are dark tone. We will be doing the dirt spatter in mid brown. we will be using Strong Tone for the Banshee Brown armor, basically their body armor. We'll be using Soft Tone for all of the pouches that are in hemp rope. We'll be using a Flesh Wash for the part of our soldier's flesh. Military Shader for, of course, the rocket on our Anti-Armor Soldier. And finally, Dragunov Nightshade and Seraphim Sepia for the visor and the bullets. So just take your time, work through each wash, let all the washes dry before you move into the highlighting step. So there we go, we finished up all the washes. It has darkened up all of the colors, giving us some nice definition for all of it, as you can see here on our Rifleman. Here it is on our Anti-Armor Soldier. Here it is on our Support Infantry Soldier. And finally, here it is on our Sniper. So with all those done, it's time to highlight. And we're gonna highlight 3 areas with 1 color. So we're gonna highlight the hemp rope, the body armor, and the body itself in 1 color, and that color being Banshee Brown. Again, we're going to re-highlight the body armor, but leaving, of course, that shade in the darker recesses. So we're just doing an edge highlighting over all 4 models. So here we have our Infantry Soldier. Of course, we're going to take our Banshee Brown and we're going to highlight the raised edges on the folds of the main body. We're gonna pick out all those folds and everything on our hemp rope. And then finally, we're gonna pick up the raised edges of the body armor, and we're gonna pick that out so we can bring the color back up after we darkened it. So take your time, go through each model, and highlight it up. So there we are, we've completed all of the highlights of the Banshee Brown, of course on the skeleton bone, the Banshee Brown, and the hemp rope. So really just bringing out the model all together. Now I will say here, as we move on to the remaining 4, I did decide to swap it up. I edge highlighted the skeleton bone and the hemp rope, but did a light dry brushing across the body armor in Banshee Brown. So just a little difference there. Here's we look at the Anti-Armor Soldier. Here is our Support Infantry. Again, I dry brushed Banshee Brown over the armor. And finally, here is our Sniper. Once again, dry brushing over the armor. So now we complete that, let's do the boots and all of the brown parts on our weapons, and to do that color, we will be using Fur Brown. Now for this Fur Brown, I'm gonna do a mix of edge highlighting and dry brushing. I'm going to dry brush the boots here. Just gonna check my brush here, okay, that's good. And just gently dry brush the boots with that Fur Brown. And then once I'm done dry brushing the boots, I'm going to do an edge highlight for the weapons, just because I don't want to get accidentally dry brush the Fur Brown onto the gun or anything else. So just take your time dry brushing the boots. And of course, if you want to, you can gently just dry brush up the weapons. I just want to be more cautious and use a method of edge highlighting. So no matter what method you use for the gun or the boots, just take your time, work through them, and get this highlight down. So there we are, we've completed up the boots and gave an edge highlighting, of course, to the weapon as well. Now, when dry brushing, start out light, then come back again with your dry brush to get that heavier color. So if you just want a very light color, just dry brush light. If you want to give it a little darker, start light and build up the color. Don't immediately start out too dark. So I just did a light dry brushing over the boots and then did some edge highlighting over the weapons. Again, as you can see with the instrument, it just defines up the weapon, defines up the boots. Here are the boots on our Anti-Armor Soldier, the only guy's weapon who doesn't have brown on it. Here is our support infantry soldier. Again, just some nice definition over his boots and his weapon. And then finally our sniper, once again, on his boots and his weapon. We're going to complete the rocket on the anti-armor soldier, then complete the visor on our support infantry soldier. These are the only two colors that are different than everything else, because mainly what we have left is the black, the flesh, and our the black flesh, the gray, and then our weapon. And then also, while we're doing our anti-infantry soldier's visor, we're also going to do his bullets. So let's start off with the anti-armor soldier, and then we'll move into the support infantry soldier. For the anti-armor soldier's missile, we will be doing just a light dry brushing of army green. If you wanted to go a little brighter green, you could do combat fatigue, but I don't want an overly bright green on the missile. I just want a subtle green change. So I'm just going to do some light dry brushing of army green. So there is our subtle highlight of army green. Again, it didn't really change the rocket. I don't want to overly saturate the rocket with green. Again, I just did a light dry brushing to pick out some of the raised parts of it. But yes, that's all I really did for the rocket. Again, if you wanted to make the rocket a lighter tinge of green over the angel green, you could probably want to use combat fatigue. But I just wanted a light, I didn't want an overly light green over my rocket. I wanted a subtle difference. And that's what the army green gives. So we're done with this soldier. There's one unique color. Now to the two unique colors on our support infantry soldier. First, we're gonna do the bullets there. And to do that, we will be using 𝐒𝐻𝐿 Armor Gold, Armor Gold. I probably pronounced that completely wrong, but we're going to be using this color, edge highlighting the bullets for our support infantry soldier. So we've completed the bullets for our anti-armor soldiers. Back there again, the gold color just giving a subtle highlight to them, giving a subtle shine. Now I did change out the water, even though this is very, very small amount. I still don't want to mix my normal paints again with metallic paints. So I did change out the water just for that safety. Now to the visor. Now to do the visor, we'll be doing it in a 3-color step. First, an overall edge highlighting of Lothran blue, followed by an extreme edge highlighting probably on more or less the corners in Bathroth blue. And finally a dot of matte white in the corner to give a reflective look to the visor. So first up, our Lothran blue. Now this is going to be an edge highlight. So we're just going to take out the edges of the visor like that, and here as well. And we're just going to do a highlight of those, and then just get that done, and we're going to move on then to the Bathroth blue. So there's the completion of our Lothran blue. So now we're going to move on to the Bathroth blue. Now for the Bathroth blue, I'm only gonna pick out probably like this edge here and this edge here. I think that just gives a nice reflective look for the Bathroth blue. I'm not going to do an overall highlight again. If you wanted to go into more of the corner areas, like say here or say here, you could do that as well. So final step is a single dot of matte white right there. And there we are again, just a little dot of matte white, giving that look of reflection on the visor. And that is it for the visor, as well as it for any of the unique colors that aren't standard for all the other soldiers. So meaning we only have the flesh, our Necromancer cloak, and the black left to work on. So anyways, let's finish up the flesh, because there's not really much to really do for the flesh. All we're really going to be doing is painting a small line between where the bridge of their nose is, and that's pretty much it. And to do that color, we'll be using Corpse Pale. Again, this is just a small line down the bridge of their nose, and that is it. And we'll be done with the faces. So see you once we have completed that line on the faces. So there we have it. The Corpse Pale is done. Again, it's just a small area to put that corpse pale. Again, that is the bridge of their nose, as you can see here on the Rifleman. There it is on our anti-armor. Here it is on our support infantry. And finally, there it is on our sniper. So now then, let's complete all of the black on all of our guys. And to do that, we'll be using Dark Reaper. Now I'm gonna do a mix of edge highlighting again with dry brushing for this Dark Reaper. So after some consideration, I'm deciding only to do an edge highlight here. If you want to do it, I was only really going to dry brush the arms and the elbow pad, but I'm going to do that all in a edge highlight. So if you wanted to do the gloves, the hats, everything in a dry brush, just be very careful, do it light and all that. Again, the reason why I'm choosing Dark Reaper is that it gives a subtle change to the black color, but doesn't basically turn the black color into a gray color. So we're just gonna pick out the edge of his helmet right here. We're going to edge highlight. Now again, like I said, it's extremely subtle, the change in coloration. If you choose, like, say, Parisian gray or any other grays, you're just going to turn your black into more of a gray color, and I don't want that for my black. I want my black to at least stand out and not look gray. So just take your time, work through all of the black on your models, edge highlight or dry brush, depending on what method you want to choose, and just take your time. So there we are. We've finished highlighting on the black. Again, that Dark Reaper just gives a subtle highlight. Doesn't overly change the color of the black, doesn't give it a heavy gray tinge or anything like that. Again, if you want your black to look more like a gray tinge, Parisian gray if you're a Citadel fan, or maybe even like a light gray from like Army Painter. But anyways, we've completed our Rifleman, as you can see here. Here's our Anti-Armor Soldier. Again, I highlighted up the folds of his face covering. Here is our Support Infantry Soldier. And finally, our Sniper. Again, highlighting up the folds of his face covering, because again, he doesn't have a big old helmet on his head. So now we're going to complete the last non-metallic highlight, and that being the uniform gray. So we're going to highlight that up before we move into the metallic color, because again, I'd rather change my water after already doing the uniform gray highlights. And to do those uniform gray highlights, we will be using ash gray. Now, working with this ash gray highlight, much like I did our Americans, I'm going to choose this side over here to highlight, and then I'm going to come over here to highlight, and that's what I'm going to do for both arms. Now, of course, for the strap, I'm going to highlight up the square fully, and then I'm going to highlight that corner right there on it. So we're going to do that through all the models. Just take your time. This is pretty finicky areas right now, so you just want to take your time working through these ash gray highlights over the uniform gray. So there we are. We completed up the gray here as we take a look at our Infantry Soldier. Here are the highlights, of course, on our Anti-Armor Soldier. The highlights on our Support Infantry Soldier. And finally, the highlights on our Sniper. Now, the last thing to do is the weapons, the Necromancer part of our weapons. And to do that highlight, we will be doing a gentle dry brushing of gunmetal. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with dry brushing the gunmetal, simply just do an edge highlight, but I'm going to do a dry brush of the gunmetal myself. So I got our Infantry Soldier here. I have a small dry brush with some of the gunmetal on it. I'm just going to gently drag that across the weapon, just picking out all those raised areas and cautious of everything we've done. So just take your time and work through every part of the Necromancer cloak. So that's it. We are all done here as we look at the Rifleman of his nice dry brush of that gunmetal over the Necromancer cloak. Of course, I also did the little compact pack on the soldier's arms as well. Here is our AntiArmor. Now the AntiArmor, I did decide to do a edge highlight on him because his parts were just a little too small. I didn't want to do the dry brushing there, so I just did an edge highlight for him. Here is our support Infantry Soldier. And finally our Sniper. So that's it. They're all done, folks. Those are the models. Now there is one more thing we're going to do to these models, but first we need to talk about the base. So this is the base. This is already a pre-done base. What I'm doing for this base is that I'm painting it down in desert yellow. Then I take dark tone ink over it. Now the rim I'm going to do in black, but first we got to do the dry brush. And to do that dry brush, we're going to do Tyrant Skull. Now, what else we're going to do with that Tyrant Skull is we are going to take our models and we're going to brush it up on their boots and their pants to kind of show, you know, the desert sands are getting up into their clothes or clinging to their clothes and all of that. It's stuck to their boots and all that, just to give them more realistic look as they're pasted down onto the bases. Now this is completely optional. If you don't want to do it, perfectly fine. Leave them the way they are here. Dry brush your bases, do all that, and then paste them on, do the rims black, and call it good. I'm just going to do one more step here for these models and then call it good. With dry brushing, once again, like I said, just take it to be light over the base here. Don't make it too heavy in any one location. We're just here to pick out those raised edges on the base. Once you think it has enough, like that, you can call that good. Now for the models. So I have our Infantry Soldier here, and I'm going to gently just dry brush his legs. Not a lot, but just enough to where it looks like the sand is catching up on his boots, on his pants. You can also just like do like a stippling effect as well. Say when I give like one other shoe, it's just a little, you know, more covered in dust and all of that. Or you can go do the dry brush method. Kind of just depends how you want to do it here. Kind of how you want them all to look. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Again, don't do it. Do it, doesn't really matter. This just gives an aesthetic look as they're on their bases. After I complete all of that and the bases, I'm gonna snap them away from these holders. And after I snap them away from the holders, I'm gonna base the rims black, and we're gonna call these models good. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this getting on the tabletop. These PCF soldiers are very different than the USA soldiers that we painted up. The PCF seemed to have more simplicity to their models. There wasn't as many straps, or there wasn't the kneecap braces or anything like that. The USA soldiers feel like they have more stuff about them than the PCF soldiers. But I think that's what makes these models unique, is because they're a lot simpler to paint up and you don't need all the colors that we did for the USA soldiers. But let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the paint scheme. What paints would you change up? How would you paint up your models? What do you think about them overall? Also, did you know we are now affiliated with Combat Storm themselves? That is correct. If you go down into the description, you'll find a link to an affiliate link. Click on that. Go buy yourself some of these models yourself, paint them up in both our USA colors and now the PCF colors so that you get these models yourself onto a tabletop. Again, you can play the game with army men, but these models are pretty cool after all. But anyways, using that link does support the channel. So if you want to support me in painting up more models or doing more battle reports, and of course support my co-hosts as well, it's greatly appreciated that you use the link down below. So with that, I'm going to say, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and make sure to ring the bell to get notified when my videos go live for you, because you guys seem to just love these painting videos, so no worries, more getting on the tabletops videos are on their way. And with that, on to the glamour shots.